I didn't see you there. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Romance with Diane. Thank you so much for being a part of my very first live stream. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you to my boyfriend, Brian Arminio, who put this together. He is possibly more extra than me. So that's how this all happens. When your boyfriend has a green screen, this is what you get. So thumbs up for Brian and his amazing efforts at the title sequence and the all the credits and the countdown and the background. And I don't know if you know, but you can see Fabio in the pictures. There's one behind me, and then there's one, oh, I'm moving the wrong way. One right there. Yeah, so this is very exciting. I've never really done an official live stream, but I have performed a lot, so it shouldn't really be that surprising that I'm doing this. But today we're reading from Fabio, Rogue. Again, for people who are just joining us, it's a romance novel that I picked up in the free book bin of the Cleveland Park Library a couple of years ago. And it's special. Fabio is a pirate. That's really like the most important thing that you need to know. And the second most important thing you need to know is that it's full of awful sex scenes. And today when we were creating the title credits, Brian said, hey, can you find me some passages from romance novels so that I can put them in the background? And I said, sure. And then I realized that all of them came from this book right here, and they are all horrific. So I would like to read one for you. And my parents are on this, and I'm sorry. Instead of claiming her lips as she would have expected, Ryder continued the slow, deliberate caress of his finger, toying with the lace of her décolletage, straying dangerously close to the cleft in her bosom. Drink for bosom. If you're playing along at home, drink for bosom. Making her demented. That's not sexy. While further arousing her with ardent looks and the heat of his breath on her cheek. Once again, we come to a common problem, which is don't talk about smells, because we know that it's like, what, the 1700s, and it's probably not good. Don't talk about smells, please. God, don't. We know they smell. I'm aware of it. They don't brush their teeth, but I don't need to know that. Ryder's sheer masculinity was so riveting. How could she be conscious of anything else? He was too near and far too tempting. She was jolted by the longing in his bright blue eyes and enchanted by the fierce beauty of his face, the jet gleam of his raven hair ripping around his noble visage. Even as his words had titillated her, his scent now further inflamed her floundering senses. Again, don't do it. Unable to remember all the reasons she should fight him. Gross. Basically, this book is a lot of boning and not enough pirate stuff. Frankly, I could go for more pirates and maybe less boning. I think it's set in South Carolina. I think so. The best part, though, is, besides the cover and his very waxed chest, is that the back, you'd be like, oh, it's a summary of the book. No, it's a letter to you, the reader. Would you like me to read it? I'm going to read it. Darling, you, my love, are my most reckless passion. I never dreamed you were a lady hiding in wench's garb. A buxom barmaid in a Charleston alehouse, you enchanted me with your barbed wit and ravishing beauty. Yet, when I wagered my companions that I would bed you before the night was through, little did I realize the risk to both my life and my heart, and that my overpowering desires would compel me to aid you in a dangerous enterprise that would carry us across the ocean to England. But I will brave any peril just to taste the sweetness of your kiss, for you have enslaved this rogue, capital R, with a promise of ecstasy and a love that will endure forever. ... He waits for you, the sexiest, most desired man in the world, Fabio. Fabio. Fabio, Fabio, Fabio. I actually have a Fabio t-shirt that I'm hoping to wear in a future stream that is part of Fabio's world tour that he embarked in for a cologne that I guess he designed. It's like a sexy cologne for men that's supposed to really be more for the women. I don't know, I can't do the accent. Except for when he says, "For you, my friends." Brian does it better than me. But anyway, the t-shirt has his tour dates on it, like a concert t-shirt, and they're all exactly the kinds of places that you would expect Fabio to tour. It's places like Omaha, Nebraska, and my sister's hometown, shout out, or my sister's current town, shout out Vivian. Toledo, Ohio made the list. Try not to be too excited about that. So he did make a stop in Toledo, and I think more than one in Nebraska, which I love. Hi to everybody who's just joining us. Thank you for coming in and saying hi to me at Romance with Diane. And I did just read from Fabio, but I would like to take a break and read from a piece that I wrote in, I think, 10th grade. It's something. I feel like I would explain it, but everybody who's on here knows what I'm like. So I'm not sure that we need to explain it. And I titled it, "An Author's First Accomplishment." Let me just sip my tea before I start. I wrote my first book at age 8. Okay, it wasn't published, and maybe it wasn't going to win the Pulitzer or anything, but it was mine. I remember distinctly my 3rd grade teacher saying that we were going to write a book for our first language arts project. At the time, I thought it would be fun. I wonder now what I would have thought had I known the addiction I was about to acquire, an addiction that I would retain all my life. I chose my book to be about a haunted house. While the other kids worked on stories about puppies and happy families, I wrote about the ghosts of 2 murdered sisters that inhabited the new home of another pair of sisters the same age as the murdered ones. The story ended up being about how the ghosts reach out to help the living and help the living sisters to solve the mystery of the haunted house. I've been on brand since birth. When my teacher announced we would read our books aloud to the class, I was apprehensive at first. What if they didn't like what I'd created? What if they laughed at me? What if my teacher really did want a story about fuzzy puppies instead of the ghostly tale I had written? But I had to find out, and the only way to know if I had done a good job was for me to read my book aloud. I remember the way my heart raced and voice quivered as I read through the pages of my masterpiece. When I finally finished, the class clapped loudly, but the moment when I first decided to become an author was yet to come. It happened when my teacher put my book on the shelves with the real books and said that if anyone wanted to read it at silent reading time, it would be available to the first person who grabbed it. As I stood in the middle of the classroom, my classmates raced to the bookshelf, clamoring to be the first to read my book. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. I watched all the happy faces, scampering feet, and clasping hands as they fought to see who got the book. I had never been so happy in all of my life. I knew then that I had finally truly been accepted by my classmates. I knew then that I was somehow giving back the happiness I received when I read a book by my favorite author. I knew then that writing was my destiny. Please hit the thumbs up if me writing a haunted house book about 2 sisters who were murdered strikes you as on brand. Because I'm betting it does. I've always loved like spooky stuff, probably because my family is really into Halloween. Like you always have the Christmas families and the Halloween families, and you're either one or the other. We're definitely a Halloween family, and I was very obsessed with this record that my mom had that was called, I think, like the spooky sounds of Halloween or chilling sounds of Halloween. something like that, but it had this amazing illustration of a southern mansion on the front with like the Spanish moss, and there's like a creepy little cat and like the gate, you know, at the front, and you can see it storming, and there's one lone light at the top of like a, you know, tattered white curtain. And I would just look at that cover for hours and be like, that's so cool, I want to be that, I love it. And so that was kind of the start of my obsession with all things haunted and all things spooky. And in that book, or in that record, there was like a story that they would read to you. So one side of the record was like sound effects that you would think, you know, things like the cat sound, and like a bird and owl, and like whoo, and like crackling fires. I think there was one for like eerie children's laughter. There was not one for haunted dolls, Brian, but there could be. And the other side of that record was a story where they used the sound effects in the story, and the story was about like a creepy southern gothic mansion. And my mom never wanted to play the story side for us, but I always asked her to because I loved the story so much, because there were like all these creepy like southern lady ghosts, you know, and they were saying stuff like, has anyone seen my baby? And it was super on brand. I was obsessed. I drew it all the time in like all of my art. I'm hoping sometime on this we do one where we just look at my art, because it's incredible. It's a lot of dresses and looks and like, you know, haunted people and family trees, family sagas, all the good stuff. So that's the first one that I wanted to share today, was that story about my first writing. But the next one I want to share talks about like a creepy southern mansion, which is why I thought I would talk about the record first. Oh, and later we're going to do some Q&A, questions and answers. So please, please, please type your questions in the comments. I want to read them. They can be about romance, they can be about Fabio, they can be about what lingerie you should wear as day wear now that we're in quarantine forever, whatever you want. So please send me your questions. I've got a couple already, and I would love to read some more. So this is a story that I did for, I want to say 7th grade language arts, around that time. And it's very on brand for me, especially the names. I loved coming up with names and family trees. Tell me what your best like name was that you came up with when you were a child, making up people and making up, you know, Barbie families and all of that, because there's some good names out there. One of the ones that I used a lot was Alicia Lawrence, or Asha Lawrence. Asha Lawrence was the like Scarlett O'Hara-esque protagonist of my big historical epic that I wrote in, I think, around this same time, because I was trying to be Margaret Mitchell, because I was obsessed with Gone with the Wind. So I was basically writing like my own version of Gone with the Wind, but her name was Asha Lawrence, and it was pretty much the exact same story with like minor things different. That one actually has illustrations that I made. So there was a Mortified piece about it like 5 or 6 years ago, and I feel like I need to bring it back, because I wrote almost all of it. Like, it's actually like 25 pages, I think, or more. I'm gonna have to bring that out. I remember her protagonist is named Will Bellatier, which I thought was like a good name for a dashing Rhett Butler-esque guy. Will Bellatier. All right, so this one's called The Letter. She was a tall, quiet person, her expression neither kind nor cruel, but a regular, everyday sort of person you might see at the grocery store or in church. But today was not a regular sort of day for 25-year-old Candace Merchant. It was her first day as an author, alone in the world. Her pen name was Alicia Lawrence. Drink for Alicia Lawrence. And she loved to write. When she was young, and even now, writing had been her escape from the real world, her own way of forgetting what her life was really like. So Candace had packed up her bags and headed out to South Carolina to visit her great-aunt Corianna Duval, who lived in an old, decrepit plantation house just outside of a town with about the population of her old high school. She had walked from the bus station to a nearby gas station to ask for directions to the house her aunt called Indigo Pines. "Excuse me," she asked the ancient-looking man behind the counter. "Eh?" he asked, not looking up from his newspaper. "Could you please give me directions to the Duval house?" "What business have you there? Old Miss Duval died 5 months ago. It's been vacant ever since. The Ladies' Aid was going to take it on as a charity project, but never got around to it." Candace was shocked. How come her family had never been notified of her death? "She was my great-aunt," Candace said shakily. "Isn't that something? I should have done this guy with a southern accent. Pretend I did, and I will going forward. The Duvals were quite the dynasty in these parts once, but Miss Duval was the last one to stick around for long. The house isn't far from here. Go down past the grocery and make a left. Continue for about a quarter of the mile up along a winding road." He regarded her red face and dusty satchel. "Think you're up to it?" he asked gruffly. "I think I can manage," she replied primly. "Thank you very much." "Come back if you need any help," he hollered as she headed out the door. I tried to write the accent in some parts, which is something I first noticed in The Secret Garden. If you read the book, it's all like in Yorkshire speech, and I remember my mom getting really frustrated trying to read it out loud because some of the words are just like, I'm very American. I don't know what "Yana win it" means. Shout out for The Secret Garden, though. That is a baby goth classic. The creepy house, the fact that she wakes up and all of her like parents have died of cholera and shit, and she's like alone in the mansion in India and then comes over on the train and is alone in a different mansion. That book was my life in like 2nd grade. I loved The Secret Garden. I still have a copy of it, actually. Candace began the long, hot pilgrimage along the winding road. She was just about to give up and go back when she rounded a bend and a huge gray house loomed ahead. Giant oaks, slattered in Spanish moss, flanked the long drive like guardian dragons. It had a haunted look to it. The windows stared back at her, full of unasked and unanswered questions. Paint flakes peeled off the house like dirty snowflakes. A rusty sign tangled in weeds read, "Indigo Pines, estate of Wilmer J. Duval." Candace cautiously opened the great oak door. A grand staircase, the scene of many balls, greeted her proudly. The house was 3 stories tall and smelled of must and decay. In every inch, memories haunted the corridors, where legends of the past lived once again for those who cared to listen closely. She ventured up the main staircase to a hallway that contained the bedrooms. Most of the rooms were stripped bare of most personal belongings, leaving only a bed and a few other pieces of useless garbage, veiled in cobwebs. One room stood out to Candace, a small room at the end of the hallway, in which every item remained intact. Candace ran her hand along the delicate French dressing table and examined the ornate silver comb and brush set in the cracked mirror. You gotta have grandma's comb and you gotta have a cracked mirror. If you're gonna do this, creepy southern mansion, like one room lost in time, if you don't have grandma's cracked mirror and comb set, like get the fuck out. She explored every inch of the house, and by the time she was finished, darkness was falling fast. It was too far from town to go back, so she steeled herself to spend a night at the house. Candace got a flashlight and a blanket and settled herself in the mysterious room. Something about it called to her, as though it had a well-kept secret to tell. Candace paged through an old Bible, examining the family records that were kept in the back. While skimming, she noticed a couple of pages that didn't seem to fit the color or grain of the others. She pulled them out and untied the ragged ribbon that held the papers together and read in awe. "Dear Duval family, it was indeed a great pleasure to stay in your elegant home. You and your husband, and especially young Coriana, are all quite charming." She skipped to the very end of the letter to see who had written it. The signature read, "Jefferson Davis, January, 1861. Coriana had to catch her breath. An authentic letter from the former president of the Confederacy during the Civil War. She reread it, tucked it into her pocket, and fell asleep. The following day, Candace walked back to town and stopped at the local library. "May I help you?" asked the woman at the reference desk. "Yes, I have a letter I found in the old Duval estate last night. The signature says it was sent by Jefferson Davis." The librarian's eyes grew very wide. "I think I have someone here who can be of help to you." She turned and called, "Frank, you've got to see this." An older man in a suit and tie abandoned his books to go over to the desk. He read the letter, fingering it gently. Remember when you could say fingering and it didn't have any other context? "Young lady, I think you've got yourself an authentic piece of history. Do you know how much stuff like this can go for nowadays at a prosperous museum?" he asked her. She shook her head. "Why don't you come back here tomorrow? I think I can get somebody out here from the Historical Society to have a look at this." "Historical Society?" Candace asked. "Yes, I work for the Historical Society." Oops, accent. "I was doing a paper on your town, and you've come at just the right time. Wait till I tell Rogers we've got an authentic Davis letter." "I mean, do you? Because you didn't question it at all, so I don't know if you have one." Then he calmed down. "Meet me here at the library tomorrow afternoon at 3, and we'll discuss what action to take next." That day, Candace walked home and stayed the night again at the house. But the next day, she couldn't find the letter. She looked everywhere and had to go to the gas station to call the men from the Historical Society. Pre-cell phone life. Candace figured out it must have fallen out of her pocket on the way home, but she retraced her route. To no avail. The letter was gone. She had to tell the Historical Society the truth. They wished her the best of luck in finding the letter, but Candace was content. She could not change what had happened, because in the end, the letter would have just been a cash deposit. To Candace, the monetary value of the letter was nothing. It was a piece of her past, and a piece of her family history. In a way, the letter belonged to the house with its echoes of the past and ghostly memories. The letter was just another piece to its everlasting puzzle. That night, Candace Merchant sat down at a desk and began to write. Her pen told the story, part fiction and part true, of Corianna Duval. She wrote and wrote and wrote until the story of the past was told. The end. Heart reacts for Corianna Duval, please, please, please. I think that was an assignment where I once again did the most, even though it was not asked of me. I don't know if other people have stories like this, but you know when like you're kind of nerdy and you have like one friend and you're bored and you get an assignment and you decide to just do whatever you wanted within the parameters, and that's what happens when you do that. Like you end up writing a whole thing when really the assignment was talk about a possession that's been lost, found, and then lost again, or something like that. Like I don't think that the actual prompt had anything to do with what I wrote, which is like a hallmark of a true Diane Ivy childhood writing, is that I was asked to do something really basic and then I did the most extra thing possible and refused to ever apologize for it. How are we doing? Do we have any questions yet? I'm gonna look. Oh crap, we do, and I didn't see them. Well, I'll definitely read through them. Thank you again to everybody who's joined. It means a lot to me that people care, so and want to hear my terrible middle school writing. This is like probably one of the most embarrassing stories ever in my life, but I have to tell you anyway because we're on the topic of my like weird haunted mansion Civil War shit, which I didn't understand the greater context of slavery and racism and everything, so please know that I was just really dumb and white and Midwestern. And I was mostly in it for like the decaying mansion aspect. Like it was more like a post-war mansion that's been abandoned and you find a diary. But anyway, I think everybody also has a story like this where you, again, did the most and you get to school thinking that you've done what you thought was like an average amount for the assignment, but it turns out that you've done way more and you're about to like completely embarrass yourself in front of your classmates. Because when you're 14, you're embarrassed to be alive. Like, you're embarrassed that you have a family. You always try to act like you're alone places. You're like, yeah, I'm here by myself. Like, are you? How'd you get here? You don't drive. You're fucking 14. So when I was in 8th grade, we had to do like some type of mock trial or like model UN situation where we had to play characters. And I like lobbied really hard to get like the Southern Belle role so that I could be Scarlett O'Hara for this class assignment. And then I went first because I'm extra and why would people not want to see this? And I'm pretty sure I dressed up and went out there and like performed an impassioned plea for the South, which again, I am so sorry. I'm so glad it's not on video. It's the kind of thing that probably would like make me ineligible to run for office due to its like incredible white stupidity. But I was acting, I was like doing all this stuff about how we need to come together as a country. And I looked around when I was done and all my classmates are just looking like, what's the whatever that, whatever major loser? I looked around and no one else had dressed up or prepared anything like that. And it was like one of those embarrassing moments where you tell your parents that you can't go back to school. Like there's no, like, I'm sorry, I can't go back because I want to die. Because I didn't know that we weren't all gonna like do an accent and like show up and do the absolute most. I really thought that we were all doing that. But apparently I didn't get the memo that it was like not cool to try. So please comment if you have ever done some shit like that, other than Sarah, if you were watching this, because I know she has. I'm gonna read some of these comments, sorry. Oh, nice. Kylie says, anytime I got the tiniest allowance of creativity, I would turn in a 10-page manifesto. And my teachers were like, Jesus Christ. Very accurate. I know people did not read the shit that I wrote because I had too much time and not enough friends. I know they didn't read it. Let's do some questions. You want to do some questions? I didn't know I had comments. I thought it all stuck after I saw my parents join, which, yes, hi Mom and Dad. I'm in my underwear, I'm sorry. Good question. Oh, my sister commented that she was looking for the Halloween horror. Oh, it was called Halloween Horrors. That's what it was called. The Halloween record. She's been looking for it and can't find it, and she works at a record store. So it's out there. I listened to it on YouTube, actually, because I was trying to explain it to Brian, and then he fell asleep. I'm sorry. Polly says she likes the name Ketsia for a mage or sorcerer. And Kylie says Naomi was a name she used a lot. And that we all love writing about orphans, which is classic. We love an orphan. We love making like characters suffer when we write as children or when we play Barbies or anything, because it's not fun if they like grow up in wealth and everything, they just have everything. Like, it's not interesting. It's about the struggle. Like, they can have everything and then lose it and then slowly gain it back and maybe lose half of it, and then maybe there's an earthquake or a fire or an evil king steals their land. Like, you gotta have the struggle or it's not fun. I never understand when they like show Barbies and fashion dolls and stuff and they're like, she comes with all these things, you can make her shop. Bitch, who is doing that? Who is playing their Barbie and just dressing it up and being like, let's go to the mall? No, fuck that. You do Barbie for like intergenerational family sagas, for drama, for romance with the one Ken doll that you have, for like pushing girls downstairs. Like if you're not doing some showgirls 80s soap opera shit with your Barbies, like get the fuck out of this stream, because that's the only way to do it. So here's a question. Stephanie asked, what's your favorite VC Andrews character and why? That is a good question. Who is my favorite? I feel like Audrina might be my favorite, only because her story is so sad, and in that you really understand like how hard it is to leave an abusive situation, and you root for her, and she gets almost there and then she can't do it at that time. And that is unfortunately a really relatable thing for a lot of people, and I think the way Andrews writes it is very, very compelling. And even though she can be kind of a dumbass, and she can be, you know, a typical kind of VC Andrews girl of like, oh, I'm just innocent, I'm perfect, I'm good at everything. I think she has like a real depth to her and a real compassion that makes her story really sad. So I like Audrina, and I like the rage of Kathy, because Kathy is pissed. Kathy will burn your house down, and I understand that deeply. I didn't think of like who's my favorite VC Andrews bad girl. Maybe Vera, but it also might be Fanny from Ruby, because she's, or not from Ruby, from Heaven, because Fanny is insane and also kind of really sad too. All the original VC Andrews have so much more depth, but we will do a separate. I don't have time for VC Andrews. We have to go to bed in the morning. Any other questions? Oh, Polly says she dressed as a French person to present the element francium and started her presentation, bonjour, je m'appelle francium. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty embarrassing. Kylie says she went overboard with King Arthur diorama. Sarah went really overboard with, I want to say, a Gone with the Wind diorama in 8th grade that she built Tara out of toothpicks, and it was really extra. Oh, my sister says she played Barbie today. Heck yeah, you did. Who doesn't? I can't wait to play Barbies with my niece. It's like the only reason that I am sticking around for on this earth, is to continue to play Barbies with my niece, because I cannot wait to show up as the villain and like ruin lives and like kiss Kens and throw people downstairs and just like do all that shit. It's what I live for. Like I never got to be like I never got to be a child star. I never got to be like the young, hot, next like ingenue girl. But there is still hope, I think, for everybody to be the evil grandmother or mother and like throw a martini in someone's face and go, you bitch! Which is what they did in Lifetime Heaven. If anybody watched those, it was iconic. It was amazing. Kelly Rutherford did it. It was incredible. Melanie has a question. I missed it, I'm sorry, hang on. Melanie says she went to poodle skirt in 5th grade as part of your campaign to be the school historian. Girl. Oh, that's relatable. What's the best way to style your quarantine look? Should I refer to the coronavirus as Johnny? You gotta wear a robe. You gotta embrace like the headscarf situation. I feel like we forget about how many different ways you can tie up your hair with a scarf. I almost did it today, but I didn't want to ruin Brian's green screen situation, so I didn't. But definitely rock a silk scarf in ways that you've not tried before, because there's many ways to do it, and it looks pretty cute. I love how Amy Adams does it in Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. All her clothes in that movie, if you haven't seen that movie is fashion, goals, it's beautiful. It's very English, so it's kind of annoying, like the plot's kind of annoying. It's worth it for the clothes, and Amy Adams is like ginger Jenna Maroney and just like ruining lives, being beautiful. It's all I want to be in life. Oh, Brian has a question. Do you want to come read your question?
No, you go ahead.
Which poison would you recommend I start building an immunity to? Ha 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 ha. Boy, fetch me more lemon Trader Joe's water. That's my answer to your question. Fetch me more water. Oh, oh, boob shot. Okay. Vivian says Grey Gardens aesthetic. Yes, absolutely. I love and hate Grey Gardens. It's a complicated relationship, but I understand the aesthetics. I appreciate the quote, "That's the best costume for today," because yeah, same. Aw, Ruby. Ruby is my niece and she's fabulous and she's gonna grow up and be another me, and I'm very excited to bring another ridiculous Ivy girl into the world because the world needs more. This will probably be the last one that I read today. This one is, oh boy. This one is so embarrassing that even I, as a person who has no shame, feels embarrassed about it. I'm reading Polly's comment. At what point in the quarantine do I start seducing my neighbors? I'm building a sexually motivated alliance. I don't know if we're at neighbor seduction yet, but like give us a couple weeks and we'll get there. Thank you for the water. This is a college essay, and like, let's pray to God I didn't turn this in. I don't know if I did. I keep like pretty clear records of stuff, but I don't know if I did. But I'm scared because this one's really embarrassing. And it is dated March 20th, 2002. So many years ago, and I'm still like this. Who am I? Many people probably want to know about the real Diane L. Ivy. Okay, not yet. I'm sure someday biography will want my life story. Until then, I'll just practice telling my story so the interviews will come easier. If I was to ask a bunch of random people who I was, they would probably say something like, "Oh yeah, Diane Ivy, that short brunette chick with lots of attitude and a talent for writing." If I was to ask my friends and family to come up with 3 adjectives to describe me, they would most likely say that I am confident, ambitious, and opinionated. And the teacher wrote, "Do you agree?" Bitch, this isn't about me, it's about my fans. Confidence is something that comes easy to me. The lie detector test determined that was a lie. I have never had a problem with expressing my individuality. Confidence first came to me at the ripe age of 13. All my life I had been known as the smart girl, someone who goes along with the crowd and really does not think for herself. I was rather sick of this characterization. Over the summer, I decided to change my image so I could be more than just smart. It was weird at first when I walked in with my black clothing and new attitude. Oh, shame, shame, shame. Such shame, such shame. All of my so-called friends didn't like the change. I personally think that they didn't like the idea I didn't want to put on body glitter and go shopping at Abercrombie and Fitch. Oh my God, why? I even remained confident about my new appearance and attitude despite much disapproval. Even though I lost a few friends, I think I gained a newfound respect for myself. I became more confident in expressing who I really was and not being afraid of whether or not everyone approved of me. Now I believe many people see my confidence and give me more respect than if I was not a confident person. Imagine applying for college and talking about how you don't like body glitter and Abercrombie and Fitch. Just imagine it. Just imagine it. Being opinionated is another trait that I have. Brian's rolling his eyes. You can't see it, but he is. When I was a little kid, about the time when I was first learning words, I showed my first sign of being very opinionated. My mother informed me my name was Diane. I looked at her for a moment and said, "My name is not Diane. My name is Danny." Now I refuse to be called anything except my given name, but I still think that experience shows that I am opinionated. Another time that I am opinionated is during any kind of class debate or discussion. I am always ready to share my opinion with my peers, even though some of them might not necessarily agree with all that I have to say. I don't know if Laura is still on this stream, but shout out to Laura for her constant defenses of gay marriage in every class debate ever. You never gave up. Respect. You fought a lot of people about how gay marriage should be legal, and you won in the end, so fuck yeah. Once I have made my opinion, all but certain disaster will make me change my mind. It's a cool attitude to have. Around the same time as my rebellious period in 8th grade, I decided I was no longer going to wear any popular brands of clothing. Oh my god. I always take the time to express my opinion that everyone in Saline, my hometown for those who are not aware of this, shout out Saline, smash that like button, Saline, dresses exactly the same and would not recognize an original thought if they fell over it. I could go on and on about the extreme shortage of intelligent people, but I am sure that very few people would care to listen to me. My parents are constantly telling me if I would only keep my mouth shut once in a while, I would not wind up in so many undesirable situations. Even as a small child, I was very ambitious. When I was really little, I wanted to be a princess. After a while, I realized I couldn't be a princess or a mermaid, or even cast magical spells to turn my enemies into frogs. It was when I was about 9 years old I found my true calling as well as my ambition. When my 3rd grade teacher told our class we were going to write books, I was not excited. I'd never done much writing up until then. And then I talked more about, my wonderful ghost book and how great it was and how important that was in my life, which, it's still true, so I'll take it. My ambition to become a writer has grown over the years. Each year I still maintain my ambition and look for new ways that I can improve my writing. Almost all of my English teachers have seen my talent, and they have been willing to help me with my writing. At the moment, I would like to become a journalist and travel all over the world, then write my way up to becoming a famous author of science fiction novels. Also, I would like to direct film versions of my 2 favorite novels, Deathstalker and The Adventures of Hawk and Fisher. I know that I have very lofty ambitions, but I believe my ambition will someday pay off. Being confident, ambitious, and opinionated are all qualities that will aid me in achieving my goal to become a writer. Even if I never do all the things that I want to do, even if I never win the Pulitzer or accept my Academy Award for Best Director in a film, I believe that my ambition, confidence, and opinions are valuable in the world today. Yeah. That is a college essay that I'm not sure if I submitted or not. Let's hope I didn't, but I don't know. Do you know what college essays you submitted? I feel like that's one of those things that people actually don't have because you would have just, in our time, either printed or, I don't know, did people write? I just don't think we had copies of that stuff. It's interesting because, I've kept a lot of records of stuff that I have, obviously, but there's actually a lot I don't have, primarily due to the fluidity of internet archiving in, that early 2000s period. I lost probably what's the best collection of my adventure stories, my adventure era, 10th grade to maybe 11th. Because it was on an online diary. I believe it was Teen Open Diary, for those of you who remember TOD. I think it was on Teen Open Diary, but I lost a lot of that content because it just disappeared. I don't have the password. I don't know the username. Oh wait, no, I do know the username. It was *** Indies Girl ***. Brian, don't look at me like you're surprised at that. And I had a little avatar where I had photoshopped myself with an Indiana Jones hat on. Oh my God, why? So a lot from that era has sadly been lost, and I would love to be able to have it, but it's probably better that we don't. It's probably better that we don't have it, I think. But yeah. Those are some of my many, 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 many works that I still have. Let's see if there's any other questions. Kylie asked me a question on Instagram earlier, so I'm going to pull that one up. What are the official categories for MASH? We used a few different rotations, and I'm curious if there's a universal / what your thoughts are. I actually was thinking about doing a stream where we play MASH. Let me know if people would be down to do a stream where we play MASH, because I am a child and I'm totally in. MASH, for people that don't know, is Mansion, Apartment, Shack, House. It's a fortune-telling paper game that little girls used to do on the playground to see if you would get to have a Lamborghini and then marry your crush. But you could also end up in a shack with like a boy that you thought was gross. So I think we have different categories because it's kind of one of those like regional or just spread through people that you know games. Now there probably is like categories because of the internet, but like pre-internet, it was whatever your older friends, sisters, brother told you to put. I know we always had car, we always had career, husbands, number of kids, but that could be determined in a couple of different ways that weren't related to actually listing them out. Usually it was like a tally mark and you say stop, or like a spiral that you drew and then you counted the lines. I think like type of house was sometimes a category other than mansion, apartment, shack, house. Like you could do like you could have an additional category. We made really complicated ones. I did make people play MASH with me in the car on the way to Chicago in grad school. And I learned a lot about the type of woman that my professor finds attractive. He was very into like Penelope Cruz and like all these like Latina chicks. And I was like, Charlie, good for you. I didn't know that about you. Respect. Get down. Learned a lot. I might still have those MASH receipts somewhere, so I should see there like what we had them to do. But we should totally live play MASH. That would be amazing. And the other question is Mary Fuck Kill, Danny Tanner, Joey Gladstone, and Jesse Katsopoulos, which are the 3 dads from Full House, which is fucking terrible. And now I'm upset because all are awful. One of my grad school classmates is commenting about the MASH game. So I would fuck Uncle Joey, because what girl wouldn't? If you're into dudes, and particularly swarthy dudes, which I am. I would, yeah. Oh, I said Jesse. Jesse's who I mean. I would fuck Uncle Jesse, no question. I would marry Joey because he seems stupid, and probably I could just do whatever I wanted, and I would kill Danny Tanner, which I feel is reasonable. So fuck Jesse, marry Joey, and I would kill Danny. That is what I would do. Oh my goodness. Oh, Kylie said in her MASH she would play what age you got married and the color of your wedding dress. Those are pretty good. I think I remember the age one as being a factor. Yeah, I wonder if there is like a universal code for playing MASH. I don't know. I made a cootie catcher recently too, because I'm an adult. But we're actually starting to wind down our time for this stream, so if you have any last questions, get them in. That sounded more sexual than I meant for it to. I'm sorry. Get them in. But yeah, if you have any more questions about literally anything, I will answer them. I hope you guys are doing okay, surviving. I believe tomorrow is the DC Primal Scream, where we all go outside at a certain time and scream, which reminds me of the Midnight Scream at Michigan State University, where at midnight every day of finals week, we would go out and at midnight just like let out all the frustration out with a scream. It was classic and very important. Michelle, I missed your question. Let me try to find it. Favorite pasta shape and why? Nice. You would ask me a food question. Michelle was my roommate in grad school, and she would always want to know what I was eating. I like a penne, but make sure it's ridged penne, not the shitty smooth penne that Italians aren't even buying during the crisis. Yeah, yeah, horrible. And then, what's the most embarrassing app on your phone? I do have a body photoshopping app that I used when I did my Britney Spears picture a couple years ago for Halloween because I had somebody take the pictures and they turned out okay, but I looked really, they were like weirdly shaped. It wasn't just that I didn't like my body, it was that I didn't feel it was an accurate representation of my body, so I did do some adjustments just to like kind of fix that. And I think it's because I was wearing pants that were a size too small, and so things were not contained, and it was, yeah. But otherwise, I don't use it. I don't use filters, and I take all my pictures from the real camera too, because I think that flash actually makes me look better. So, beauty tip for you. Did I cry when Fabio took the bird to the face on the roller coaster? People always ask me about that when I talk about Fabio. I don't think so. I think I thought it was funny. I also think I didn't know about it for a long time because I kind of got out of the romance game and then came back. Because at heart, I'm just an 8th grader. So I'm coming back to all my interests that I used to have as a child and re-embracing them with confidence that includes being open to non-black clothing and also body glitter. Yeah. Last call for questions or general comments of any sort. Do you want to say hi, Brian?
Hi, everybody.
Kylie says she didn't participate in the midnight scream because she was edgy. That was me at first, and then by second semester freshman year, I was like, I need this. I need it. If I missed your question, I'm sorry, I probably didn't see it. Oh, Kelly says that the chandelier over my head makes me look like the cursed American Girl doll. No, I mean, I want to do a whole quarantine question about American Girl dolls because there are so many things I have to say. I feel like one of the reasons that I focus on nostalgia so much when I try to get to know people is because I didn't have a lot of friends as a kid, so I had like all these thoughts that I never shared with anybody except maybe my mom. And so now as an adult, I want to know what people thought about stuff that I consider to be ubiquitous. And I feel like it's the easiest way I know how to connect with people is through nostalgia and like keeping records. Like I have a couple of actually documents from my hometown that are like people's predictions for what they're going to be in 20 years. So I might do another stream where I read some of those. Polly, I know you're in it. Laura, you're probably in it. I think everybody's in it. They're very, very funny. So definitely, I try to keep a lot of stuff because I think it's like the best way I know how to connect with others is through sharing those memories and asking people questions about like nostalgia, because we all had different childhoods, but we all, you know, come from the same pop culture world, I guess. All right, with that being said, I don't have any more questions, so I think we're gonna go ahead and sign off for the night. Thank you so much to everybody who joined and asked questions and everybody who reacted, and once again to Brian for setting this up and doing the absolute most with me in every possible way. All right, good night, you guys. Take care. Bye.